Whether you're joining a Product Marketing Alliance event for the first time, or if you're a seasoned regular, welcome to the second edition of the Customer Marketing Summit. Before we dive into the day's content, we just want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, partners, speakers, and you, our lovely audience. From wherever you are watching in the world, we're sure you'll enjoy the sessions from our incredible lineup. With expert presentations, specialist talks, and deep dive panel sessions on the agenda, you are in for a real treat today. To get the most out of these sessions, please ensure you are sharing your feedback and asking all your questions in the comments section, and our speakers will be answering them throughout the day. After the event, a great place to continue the conversation is in the customer marketing channel in the PMA Slack community. If you aren't already a member, hop on over and come and join the discussion. And if that's still not enough, then why not become a PMA Pro member and benefit from unlimited access to exclusive templates, frameworks, and our entire library of videos and slide decks from all our events. So with all that to come, let's dive right into the next session.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. And today we have Brie Bunzel. We're going to be talking about customer marketing, which is hot and new in the SaaS world. It means many things to many people. So let's learn about how to get into and how to excel in customer marketing from one of the best, Brie Bunzel. Well, Brie, who is Brie Bunzel for everybody on the call?
Yeah, born and raised in San Francisco, moved out to Australia about 7 years ago. I currently live in Bondi Beach. I guess we can go on about my life journey, but one of my passions is ocean swimming. I'm also a really big fan of ethnic food, but also the Sydney brekkie culture, which is breakfast. So if you're ever visiting Sydney, I'm happy to give you recommendations, but I'm really excited to be here today. Thank you, Sai.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the two areas. First, what it means to be in customer marketing for somebody new in it. And the second half, we'll talk about how to be successful and the path to success. So Brie, what does customer marketing, we've used it multiple times, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, great question. So I think of customer marketing as evangelizing the customer first experience, thinking about what they want and what they need to be successful in their jobs to be done and their tasks. I think many times organizations think from a revenue first perspective or an upsell perspective instead of thinking about where they're at in the journey and what they need most. I think it's also a combination of building really strong, deep relationships with your customers around the world and being 10 steps ahead of them. So actually knowing what they want in the future so that you can go and build and solve for those needs.
That is precise. Okay, so there's a few different components to it. How did you put this into practice at Dropbox, for example? What does that look like as a program? And if you can give us the history, where did it start?
Yeah, it's funny because I felt it came serendipitously to me. I would say customer marketing at Dropbox is a relatively new function in the organization. As you mentioned, it's a new hot topic with SaaS, and more companies are starting to develop these customer marketing roles and functions, which is exciting to see. But I was working on a customer advisory board program last year. And as I was building this, we were building customer advisory boards in each region around the world in each of our key markets. And the CMO at the time had tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Have you ever thought of doing a customer marketing role?" And I said, yes, without even knowing fully what it was. I just thought it would be a cool opportunity. I guess you just say yes and figure it out. But one of the things that we realized as a company at the time was that we weren't showing enough love to our existing customers. It was also an interesting time in the history of Dropbox because we had started to move away from just being a single product of Dropbox, as you guys all know and love today, into this multi-product platform. And we felt it was really important to ensure our customers were a part of that journey with us, not getting confused or not losing them through that process in our evolution. So one of the things that we thought about was, okay, if we're building a customer marketing function, there's two components. I think the first is that it's not like customer marketing elements didn't exist in parts of the company already today.
Right.
They were living in different pockets. So you had a content team doing customer stories. You had an onboarding team doing all the emails. And what was happening though, is there wasn't this cross collaboration coordination. So as we always said, our silos were showing to the customer. So you'd be getting all these emails around one type of messaging, and you'd have in-product prompts about a whole different topic. And so there needed to be this like coordination, which was like the first component for things like, let's say, onboarding and adoption that exists today, but at least ensuring that this consistent message is clear throughout all those channels at the right time in the right place. And then the second component was building a lot of areas of customer marketing that we really didn't have that we should. And a lot of that came from just talking to a lot of great customer marketers. And things like this included advocacy and customer feedback loops. So advocacy includes like, who are your top customers? Who are the ones that are going off and cheering from the rooftops about how great your product is? And then your customer feedback loop is something that we're still figuring out, which is how do you take all the feedback you're getting from customers and bringing it back into the organization to influence your product and your strategy. So I would say it's been a journey, not always easy, as we'll get into in a moment. But I do feel like it's been really exciting to see the organization starting to rally behind the customer and think about them a bit more proactively and holistically.
That's so interesting that you bring up two things that resonate with me as a product marketer in cybersecurity. It is extremely difficult sometimes to get customer stories to speak up on your behalf. Obviously, customers can be a bit reticent telling you about what defenses they have. And so sometimes it can be very hard. The second part is the fact that not even customer advocacy, but the various functions of customer marketing can be done by different groups. And so we have had multiple cases in our firm where we've hit up the same customer from multiple angles around, just trying to understand their product usage, their happiness, NPS surveys, etc. So very much resonates.
Yeah, it takes a village. I +1 to everything you just said. And I think the key to this is also not having an ego about it when you're leading this. You can't own all these functions, and there's no way your team will have the bandwidth to talk to all 500 million plus, in our case, customers. You need a village, and you need a cross-functional team that's solid at kind of understanding the mission. So I hear you.
I know we didn't have this in our pre-talk notes, but I did want to ask you about, it seemed like the CMO had a vision as well, to tap you on your shoulder to say, hey, maybe customer marketing is something that's there. Maybe can you speak about how a leader there can, create that for somebody new coming in?
Yeah, absolutely. And this CMO was incredible at really understanding the customer needs ahead of time. It was like she's a mind reader, but she also was very data driven. And so she actually could understand some of the key areas we were struggling in, or had opportunities like, maybe we can even improve the churn rate, or why are people leaving, or we don't know all these things. And so there was a lot of this hypotheses building with the leader. And I think finding the right people that can help solve and go find those answers and those solutions. So the leadership and the tops down is so, so critical and important. And I would say it's a bit more difficult when the leader doesn't really understand customer first mindset, and they're just like revenue. And I think a lot of that comes again from the data. How can you improve some of the metrics that you're thinking about, but really then how do you actually talk to those customers to get that clarity on what they're looking for?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So for somebody who's listening to this and kind of excited by all the things that you said, all the responsibilities that are there to tie together, how can someone get into this space new? What are the various avenues that you've seen?
Yeah, I found, for me, at least in my experience, that I always was interacting with customer related projects, whether it was being able to be a part of the alphas and the betas for the launches, or interviewing customers for a story, or at the time pre-COVID, going out in the field and actually talking to these customers. So I just found that really exciting for me. And it was something that brought me a lot of energy, because it reminds you and regrounds you and why you're there. why are you spending all these hours to build this product? There's humans on the other end that are benefiting from this, and you hope that they're benefiting from it. And so that's your job to go and figure that out. So I think my first piece of advice would be to stay close to any projects that engage with the customer to any degree. One thing I also did, which really helped get the organization and leadership on board, was we did this post-sale illustrative customer journey. And what that means is like, what is the dream state of the customer? So like day one, Sai, you're using Dropbox. What do we want you to feel? What do we want you to be using? And day 5, day 10, what do we want that experience to be? And then do a comparison of where the current state is at. Are we there? Is Sai really feeling that way on day 1? Or is he actually really disappointed or annoyed that he's getting so many emails when he's just trying to get used to Dropbox? There's so many different things to think about in that opportunity of where you can get to. And so that was a really interesting exercise for us. And then I would also add that one thing that's helped me build this function is talking to so many customer marketers in other parts of the organization. Events like this Customer Marketing Summit are so valuable for that. I've learned more from just people's failures and things they've done wrong and things they wish they learned and how they use their budget more effectively. And I basically created like a SWOT analysis for customer marketing and shared it to the leaders in the organization and said, this is what best in class looks like. And this is where we're currently at. There's so much opportunity. And that starts to build the momentum for having that baked into the strategy and the experience and the team that we need to help build that.
Okay. So you've gotten to a bit of what success looks like in the role as well. So let's get into that a bit more to understand. So you talked about some of the gap analysis that you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But as a customer marketer, what are some of the key components or skills that I would need to be amazing at it, to be somebody like a Brie Bunzl 2.0?
I would say there's 5 big things. The first one is curiosity, not only about the customer, but external inspiration, new ways of thinking about our customer experience that we haven't thought of before. The second is diversity, not just cultural diversity or where you're from or your ethnicity, but also diversity of thought, new perspectives, new backgrounds, new working styles, different strengths. We recently did a strengths finders for my team, and all of us are different colors on the strengths finders, which is awesome because not only are we different underrepresented minorities on our team, but we also represent different styles of thinking and embracing that. The third would be collaboration. Being able to bring people together. As I mentioned, it is the cross-functional glue for a lot of these massive projects, and really being able to learn fast with the team and build and again, put our egos aside and think first about what is the best thing for the customer, not just what is the best for the Dropbox revenue. The fourth is customer empathy. This is something that takes time to build, but it's really just being really passionate about the customer and everything that they're doing, really understanding their pains and their challenges and putting yourself in their shoes so that you can actually build products to solve those key challenges. And then the fifth would be strong interpersonal and relationship building skills. You're going to be doing so much engagement internally, but also with customers to get them on the journey and where you want them to be heading. If you want them to be evangelizing your product, that's a whole process to get them on that as well. So I would say, again, curiosity, diversity, collaboration, customer empathy, and strong interpersonal skills.
I love it. You've simplified it down to like 5. These are big challenges for anybody to work on, but they're groups that folks can work on. Now, with that also comes, given the breadth of the role, not all days are going to be roses. So can you tell us about the challenging times that you faced and what it takes to overcome that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's messy. I mean, I'll be the first to say it. There are so many things that you're still figuring out. I remember one of my recent teammates was onboarding and she's like, wow, we're still like building processes. And I said, look, you're building the plane as you fly. When you're building a new function, you're proving it out. You're also trying to get early wins for the customers and for your organization. So it's not always easy. I would say it takes patience and it takes time to build a new function, to evangelize it internally and get folks on board. What is the value? What is the impact you're bringing to customers as well as, the overall business? And then the second challenge or pain point for, at least for us, is because it was a new function, there weren't the right tools in place. So there's been this whole new journey of what are the right tools to, engage with our customers and measure success of things that are new metrics like influenced ARR or advocacy. These are things we never really measured before, but clearly have an impact into the entire journey of the customer. So I would say those two are the big things to think about, but it's not pretty. I mean, even at the biggest organizations, I've chatted with some of my peers, they're still not perfectly pretty under the hood, and that's okay. I think the big thing is to just show up authentically and, with the customer first mindset to those customers. And so at least that their needs are being met first and foremost in those engagements with them.
So you've spoken a bit, you just touched upon from some of the peers. Would love to learn who helped you through this this marketing journey.
Yeah.
You've already mentioned the CMO, but who did you learn from, whether peers or mentors of from other areas?
As I mentioned earlier, I think diversity of thought includes exposing yourself to so many types of people in the world and not just marketers. Obviously, I've had managers and mentors, and obviously staying close to the customers themselves. Some of my most impactful conversations have been with customer marketers that are my peers that maybe are 5 years ahead of me or 10 years ahead of me. So I can kind of say, hey, I'm in this awkward, phase 2 of building this out. Where do I begin? What's the first thing I should start with? I would say as well, though, a lot of the things that I've learned have also come from non-marketers or non-customers, which are just cool brands that are having great customer experiences. And now that people, like friends of mine, are starting to know what my role is, or even my partner, for example, you are getting these emails forwarded of like, this was such a cool email I just got, or like, I didn't know that they knew this about me, or, all of a sudden you're looking on LinkedIn and you're starting to follow these companies that are doing amazing things with customer marketing, where the customers are sending photos of themselves delighted by an experience or a package that they receive for being an advocate. Those are all the different inspiration that you get throughout this journey, and being open-minded and exposed to just not just your organization and your own echo chamber is super important.
I feel like that's such an important thing, because I think back in my own journey. I was in product management before this. It's now half a decade ago. And then got into product marketing primarily through coaching from somebody who was in sales engineering.
Yep.
Nothing to do with my function. And in fact, this person was in the organization, but then I left and really took a lot of the guidance from that person throughout after that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's sometimes in various other places from other random conversations that this can often come.
Yep.
And I think it ties back to sometimes for me the challenging times. And so you mentioned the areas around collaboration and the fact that it's a teamwork. I think it can't emphasize it enough how when you're in a new function, collaboration and teamwork to build it up. Nobody knows what you're doing otherwise.
Exactly.
Actually, can you tell us more about what it now looks like in terms of now people understand customer marketing? Can you give us like an example in when you saw kind of the light bulb in an organization around customer marketing?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, to be honest, it's still a work in progress. Like even 1.5 years in, we're still, my old CEO always said, repetition doesn't ruin the prayer. Like we're still going out and saying the same thing over and over again. One thing that's really helped in the process as we've built this function is doing roadshows. And I'd highly recommend that. So twice a year, we build out kind of the H1 strategy, the H2 strategy, all the key tactics and projects, and then have a chance to open it up for conversation with each of the cross-functional teams. How can we better interlock? How do we better collaborate with one another? And so the roadshows have actually been really interesting in that process. But to answer your question, I think where the organization is now, some of the early wins that I've seen be really exciting is, for example, we just launched a brand new onboarding experience. So in the first 30 days of the customer, and the previous experience was very much focused on, hey, you just bought Dropbox, now buy this, now buy that, now buy that. And the new version is very much focused on a customer first mindset of like, hey, are you okay? How are you onboarding? Like, what things are you missing? Have you thought about this feature? We know that you're a media customer. Have you thought about this media tool? So having that all of a sudden change this idea around not only having to focus on revenue was like a big aha for the team. And obviously the revenue will come once you solve these customer challenges. The second thing I'd mention is we recently launched our first customer advocacy program, and we've now recruited about 15 customer advocates. And we have this poster recreated internally with all their faces, all their locations, all of their verticals that they're focused on. And what's so exciting about it is now people are saying, oh my God, we have an advocate for this space in this region, and I'd love to chat with them because we're building this feature that solves for them exactly. And all of a sudden you're seeing people internally get so excited about the fact that they can leverage these customers, tell their stories. And equally, these customers are super honored to be advocates. They use the product day in and day out. They get a chance to be exposed to our leaders as they're influencing the future of Dropbox. And they also kind of get a chance to, I guess we call them, make them famous through the process.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like the biggest insight actually we learned, is that a lot of these customers, depending on their size, but many small business, mid-market, even solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, they would be so thrilled if Dropbox did an article on their customer story, because we have a massive platform. We have posting on our website or sharing their story on our social channels. All of a sudden that's 7 million plus eyeballs around the world looking at this mom and pop baker that's innovating in all these cool new ways with Dropbox. So I think that's something to keep in mind with customer marketing, is how can you make sure that the customer is benefiting from it? And a lot of the ways that happens tends to be making them famous. One quick example I'll share with you is that we had a customer, Wayne. He worked for the National Rugby League as a media specialist. He loved Dropbox, and he started presenting at different webinars and speaking engagements that we had, and as well as he did a customer story with us. And through that process, he built such a close relationship with us in that whole journey, so much so that we actually had a job opening for a solutions architect, who's someone who loves Dropbox, uses Dropbox day in and day out. And
that's amazing.
All of a sudden, he applied for this role, got the role, and he actually just started last week with us. So not to say that every customer advocate wants their end state to be Dropbox, but it wasn't a really exciting experience, an example of how being close to the customer and, also having them have all these opportunities to become famous can enhance their career. And I've heard many other companies do this. Another great examples with Adobe and their Marketo Engage program as well. So I think I've seen a lot of great examples of this. Salesforce does it an incredible job. Their customers are the heroes. They're on stage as trailblazers with the CEO, Mark Benioff.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot more you can be doing.
Okay, so we're gonna run out of time.
Yes.
So I want to bring us together for just getting everybody listening and viewing this, some actionable tips from all that we've talked about as people want to grow their careers in customer marketing and into customer marketing. Any actionable tips that you might have?
I'd say the first and foremost is to proactively build some tangible skills and frameworks that can help you stay close to the customer, not only identifying who they are, but also identifying the challenges, the opportunities, and bringing that back to the business for strategy. So 2 quick things on that. The first is design thinking. If you haven't yet heard of design thinking, I would take a mini course. There's plenty online that cover it. And it's basically a framework to understand the customer, build and solve for those key challenges in different minimum viable products, and actually help enhance their experience, whether they're trying to get a job done or whatever they're trying to do with your tool or your service. The second skill I would say is also things like I mentioned earlier, like customer advisory boards. They're a great way to get really close to the customer and understand what things you may not be solving for yet. I last year with the Product Marketing Alliance created a CAB masterclass. CAB stands for Customer Advisory Board masterclass. And it's a great opportunity to just work at your own pace and start to learn the ropes of what it takes to understand your customers and how that actually influences the overall organizational strategy. The second tip I would give, and I said this before, is relationships are everything. the quality of your relationships, or the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships, and your business life is no different. And so the more that you invest in those relationships with your customers or your cross-functional stakeholders, the more richer that experience will be. And I truly live and breathe by that. You and I have formed a relationship through this, and
Yeah.
there's so many benefits that have come from that. And same with customers that I've met that have gone on to like build amazing careers through just being a part of our Dropbox ecosystem or advocacy program. So I think just keep those relationships strong and keep opening your mind to building new ones. And I know people have gone through this whole role of like Zoom fatigue and whatnot, but having a virtual coffee even every 2 weeks with someone new can change your entire trajectory of your career with inspiration and ideas.
I love it. So I'm excited. There's a lot of good stuff here. So thank you, Bree, and thanks for everybody tuning in. This is Sai Chavli from Product Marketing at Proofpoint signing off. Thank you.
Thank you.